I was watching this interview with Ab Soul and Charlemagne, and this can kind of touch on a lot of black mental health spaces and different things like that. But unbeknownst to most people, and this might have been like his first admission of it, but he spoke about the idea that he had tried to commit suicide.
Mm.
Um, and as he went through it even more, it was kind of like a very interesting situation. This coming off the back of, I think it was a popular dancer, Twitch. He recently committed suicide this week. So like
Mm.
my ears had perked up a little bit. In which with Ab Soul, it was a couple parts that I thought was interesting. One, he said that inside his regular mind / sober mind, he's never had suicidal thoughts. But he
Mm.
has inside a couple scenarios had like a friend after he had blacked out, woke him up and be like, "Bro, you was tripping last night. Like you was talking about going to go see this past relative X, Y, and Z. Like you was off one a little bit." And he was speaking about how I don't know, it kind of like led up to the space, and obviously he must not have been inside his right mind. But he said that long story less long, he jumped off a 50-foot bridge onto the freeway. What broke his fall was a car, and that's how he attempted to commit suicide. So
Damn.
like he went through with like that real whatchamacallit of it, and the conversation gets deep. And again, I would reference everybody to go watch that interview where they kind of unpack it. He's with Charlemagne, so they get into a little bit of the mental health pieces of it and kind of like the before and the afters of it. But nonetheless, I think with season of depression where it's at, the holiday season, this
Mm-hmm.
is a good time for a good mental health check-in, and B,
Sure.
I think that this is a relevant conversation when it comes to men, when it comes to black men. However, the conversation leads us. Um, I don't know. I'll toss it to y'all.
Yeah, no, and while you saying that, I kind of was looking up the statistics just in general. It says one male dies by suicide every 14.4 minutes in the U.S.
Hmm.
There are 3.9 male deaths per suicide for each female death by suicide.
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy. That's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
I think this, and then like with the job I do, like I said, I look at death certificates and shit all day, and I see like, you know what I mean, this is like literally a thing, and I wonder, I think that it's a part of it's our culture failing. It's
Mm-hmm.
a part of our culture failing. I think it's a part of our society failing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think we're failing in like many different ways in which we will see. Of course, like it starts with I don't say start with, but it comes from like divorce rates. You know what I mean? Single parent households. Then you look at joblessness. Then you look at the price of cost of living going up. And you look at like all this. Then of course, social media plays its own piece into it.
Substance abuse.
Substance
Substance
abuse, like
abuse.
you know what I mean, it's a lot of different things that's kind of going into it. But what would y'all say? I guess. Well, first, like, and I'm gonna go ahead and just be honest. Like, I know I'm probably not the only person up here that done thought about it at some point. I've never like tried to carry it out,
Mm-hmm.
but even still, like you'll hear me say, and I kind of joke about it, but like this place ain't that fucking great. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? And I say that all the time. Like, you know what I mean? If somebody bring up something like, yeah, I mean, this place ain't that fucking great to me. You know what I mean? That's just my like literal opinion. Like, if it wasn't for the fact that my kids, I'm like, huh? Then I wouldn't want my family to have to mourn me. But it's nothing actual inside of me that makes me love being here. That's like outside of people. And so I think that dang, that may be a very important part. Is we need each other in order to value this place. Maybe that, you know.
Hmm.
I don't necessarily,
Alright.
agree with that. I mean, I think part of the problem goes to we in the microwave society as far as we live in. Uh, Life is way more fast paced than it was 20, 30 years ago. We're living in social media, 24-hour news cycle, the the demands at work. We got cell phones. There's a lot of times you can't escape work because your boss can always call you, or if you're in sales or if you're an entrepreneur, your job can always, it's always following you. It's always something. There's no, I think, time to reflect with it. There's not a lot of that quietness. And I don't think it's
Mm,
necessarily like people. I think it's more, I always say it's an attitude of gratitude. I think
Mm-hmm.
if you can find something to be thankful for, find something to be fascinated. Like the world is crazy. Like I mean, even with nobody here, I think even just the way the clouds, the weather, how rain comes from the ocean and gets evaporated and then comes down and falls. It's just a whole bunch of just cool stuff with the world that I try to, lean on as far as like I think it's an amazing place. I think
Mm.
it's,
Mm-hmm.
I you know, love to wake up and get to learn something new, experience something new, talk to somebody new. So I think it's just more of just the attitude that we have as a society. A lot of that goes into capitalism and having to meet quotas and just the big, it's just a big push, even from social media, all of it, to where I don't think people have enough time to really just sit and
Be
be with
themselves.
themselves
Mm.
Right. And so I
long
guess,
enough.
yeah, and where you was at, I think there's a lot to kind of unpack a little bit and kind of talk through as a trio, as a group, in which even inside like that statement, this place here isn't that great. Are you talking about like the expectations of what's placed upon you, and that's not that great, and the pressure of living up to it, or like the actual enjoyment of like everything that you do, like having the conversations with the people that you like having conversations with,
Mm-hmm.
all the enjoyable parts that come with it, the things that aren't dealing with the pressures in which it comes with being just a human in society, being a man in
Being a
society,
black man and
being
all
a
that,
black man in
husband,
society,
a father,
being
and
yeah,
yeah,
like
yeah, I can see what
where
you're
you
saying.
start kind of like piling on these different pieces of expectations, where then
Mm-hmm.
the pressure of it might feel a little bit more heavy, and that's the part that you might not always have, you know what I mean, satisfactory love for. But in general, when it comes down to what you actually really enjoy, and this is where again I'll throw back to a piece that I continually harp on, is that I think it's important to have adult hobbies where
I was just
you
thinking about that.
literally do things that you love to do, so
Mm-hmm.
that you, like, monetary value aside, you're doing things in which you find value internally in.
Yeah. And see, you know something too, and I agree with you 100%. Like even that whole, I feel like that was almost like a quick. Well, this conversation is. I'm not suicidal, you know what I mean.
No,
But
but
I'm
it's
just
a
saying,
healthy
it's a
conversation
it's a
regardless.
good therapy session type conversation. What I was going to say is that it's it's so easy. And I think that this probably would like the difference between. I can't speak for women, but I can speak as a man.
Hmm.
I would say I think that like the fact of it can be very hard, especially just thinking about being a husband, being a father, being a just being
The
how we
stacking of
just
expectations on
all of
top.
that shit, like
Yeah.
all of that shit. Ever since you from birth, we always had like you know what I mean these expectations of these hills you had to climb, and people doubting you and telling you what you wasn't going to be able to do, and having to you know what I mean over try like
Hmm.
literally in my mind, like I only got good at anything I got good at is because people was talking shit telling me I couldn't.
Hmm.
So like literally, that is the reason why I got good at anything that I got good at.
Hmm.
Reason why I got good credit is because I had to deal with the bullshit and had to deal with the
Hmm.
crumbs of not having good credit, not being able to get anything. So I had to, you know what I mean? I ain't had nobody put me on no card and help me build myself up. So like it's I think I agree with you 100% when you say and it's something that I think that is very powerful. And you said it previously, you know what I mean? The adult habit, the adult hobbies.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? You have to be very intentional because you can lose sight of yourself
Hmm.
fulfilling all of these responsibilities, and then you don't even know what the fuck you like anymore.
Yeah.
You literally get to a point to where the hobbies that you had that made you happy growing up, you life has made it so that those things don't exist for you, and then you have to try to figure out, okay, dang, at what point am I going to be able to figure out what that is
Yeah.
to be able to keep me from going in these darker spots?
And I think where you're at is a great space. And I like to push it forward a little bit to where this is one of my critiques of like that red pill alpha male
Mm-hmm.
community ideology, all that shit, where a lot of it is almost like preaching this idea of keeping your emotions bottled up and not expressing it to your partner, not expressing it to whoever.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you have one or two friends, in which I think that it is really healthy to promote for guys learning how to actually be emotionally vulnerable in
No,
multiple
for sure.
spaces, because of, again, you never know what that actually leads you from doing inside, like the positive and negative sides of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Yeah, I think that again, if I was to say one of the reasons that I think that the rates are as high is because of, in general, I think that a lot of men try to ascribe to a lot of those traditional archetypes of what it means to be a man. And that also comes with this whole idea of being stoic, being able to
Mm-hmm.
bear a lot. But the reality is that we are all still human. We
Yeah.
all have to have our spaces where we can kind of like let loose and really talk about, whine about, bitch about whatever issues you
Oh
really
yeah,
have,
no, that's facts.
because that's a part of the human experience within itself. Um, Johnny.
No, I'm gonna say, nah, emotions are they're just human. You know, you can be a man and act like you don't have emotions
Hmm.
all you want to and bottle them up, but like as people, you know, it's just a that's a human characteristics. You
Mm-hmm.
are gonna have certain emotions. Now, how you deal with them, what you do with them, where you put them, how you process them, that's on to each his own. Everybody, deals with them differently, but and there's also different outcomes that come with how you deal with
Mm-hmm.
your emotions. But before we get too far, I want to say welcome back to the To Be Fair show. I
Hmm.
am your host Johnny P,
Oh, yeah, real.
It's Q.
and we back. Um, Another thing, on that subject is you gotta, like you say, you gotta feel your emotions. You gotta give yourself space to, whether you're sad, whether you're embarrassed, whether you're,
Hmm.
there's a ton of, there's a bunch of different emotions that sometimes as men we don't necessarily like to attribute to ourselves. So when you're
Mm-hmm.
going through a certain thing,
Hmm.
you don't want to necessarily say, "Oh, that made me sad," or "That made me mad," "That made me jealous."
Yeah.
Right.
There's a few things, but you just gotta let yourself, feel them and process them. But we'll throw the
So
cue.
I guess, well, before we're gonna throw the ties in a second, but I think the other side of that coin too, because I think there's two spaces where I think as guys we have to be open to being vulnerable and having these conversations and not taking yourself too seriously. I also think that on the other side of it, the societal side, we could talk about our partners. We could talk about the way that society looks at men, black men, etc. It has to also open up the conversation to where you don't chastise men for also expressing when they don't feel 100%.
The
When
facts.
I'm not reaching these goals at 1,000 that you think that I should be at. When I'm not inside these spaces in life in
Mm-hmm.
which I haven't achieved whatever my goal was when I put the shit on the vision board.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I think that it's a double-edged sword. We have to be more open, but I also think that it's important that from black culture, American culture, societal culture in general, capitalistic culture. It also feeds into this where allowing safe spaces for men to be vulnerable and it being okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Taj.
I was watching a TV show recently, and it was a married couple, and the wife was recently diagnosed with a very aggressive form of breast cancer.
Mm,
And so
Mm-hmm.
the husband, when he was doing his I guess you could say like your confessional, like where they just have you on the screen, they're asking you questions, you're responding.
mm,
He said that his brother is the only place where he could express how he was feeling.
Mm-hmm.
So in my mind, I started thinking like, you didn't have your brother, and you're going through this. Where would you have gone? Like, how does that affect you? Because obviously, he's saying for his wife, he wants to be strong and be there for her, and make sure he's 100% for her because she needs him to lean on, being that
Mm-hmm.
this is happening to her. But it's just like, if you didn't have your brother, like, what would you do?
And
mm,
I think that that's a space that a lot of us are in as men. And I'm not trying to now. This ain't no bashing woman type of response to that, but I'll say that like I think that we have to lean on each other a lot more. I understand if it wasn't for just you having that one brother, well, you need to surround yourself with men. You need to
mm,
surround yourself. You need to all this whole people. My circle small and all this. I ain't saying put everybody in your business, but we got to start looking because the thing is that it's going to take some, like I say about relationships, it's going to take some time for us to get from one place to the next to where we have some level of understanding to actually build these homes to at any grand scale for us to change that. Just like it's going to take some time for a lot of our women to actually be able to accept and understand how to interpret us being emotional and actually having a response to said emotion that's going to be conducive and productive for our mental health. One thing that I do know that like generally I think it's easier for us to do with one another. So I would say that like surround yourself with men. You know what I mean? Because we're gonna. I mean, no matter how we look at it, men and women think differently. You know what I mean? Generally, we are different. So it's just that it's easier. Like I feel it's even a comfortability level for me to my brother.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? For me to Q or for me to Newton. I mean to Johnny P. Like it's just it's a comfortability that you have just based in like your experiences that you've had trying to open up. Even that little because it don't take much for us to feel like okay, well, I'm not gonna go there with you. You know what I mean? Because that little bit that I gave you,
Mhm.
yeah, that's not going to even. You know what I mean? Because the response, I didn't want to do it to begin with, but I felt that I had to.
Mhm.
And then the fact that I felt like I had to, if your response to that isn't, um, what in any realm, what I was looking to, have as a response that I thought was, a decent response to me being emotional to you, then it's just like, yeah, that's something you probably never get again, just because of
Mhm.
the fact that if you do it, you know what I mean. If you do it, it's like I'm just gonna let it go.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm just gonna let it go, and then if that response isn't for some reason, you know what I mean, and I guess it's because we weren't raised to be emotional. We weren't raised to it. What we saw was almost like, you know what I mean, a man, you gonna chin it. You chin it and you drink water and drive on. And in the military, they preach that too. Like,
In response to what you just said, it made me reflect. When I was in high school, there was this guy that I was really close friends with, and he called me one night, and it was super late, and he was talking to me about his wanting to commit suicide.
mm,
Mhm.
And like, I'm not sure if my response was what he needed from me because I've never dealt with that before.
yeah,
So it kind of caught me off left field, and I'm like, hold up, wait, like what's going on? Everything's okay, like da da da. So he starts going down like this whole list of things of how he's felt and how he feels like he has no one there, even though he has his parents in the household.
mm,
He played football, so he has his friends and all of that, but he felt like nobody was really there for him, and he was dealing with all these things.
mm,
So he was looking to me to have like that response that I hope I gave him, and he's still living, so I'm hoping that
mm,
I was able to help him with that. But in those moments, sometimes people don't know how to respond
mm,
when you like unleash your emotions.
Mm.
That's fair. Like they don't really know how to take that or like give you the thing that they're like, give you what you're looking for, because sometimes they're probably trying to process it themselves. Like,
mm,
hold up, this person just told me this. Like,
yeah,
okay, how do I respond to that?
Um. And all right. So I guess responding to what you just said, I would say that it is important to understand that it's not necessarily when you're inside those spaces. I've had that exact same idea. Like, damn, I want to make sure I say the right thing at this right time and like whatever.
mm,
But a lot of times, just being there, being an ear, being a person, just whatever you genuinely feel, is a just staying on that phone with that person.
mm,
It's not like a hard time. Being an ear just to listen. Sometimes people just got to get shit off their chest. I think that that's a really important piece. And so, if you're ever inside that scenario, what I would advise for most people is that it's not about being perfect. It's about being present.
mm.
That's a
I had a
bar.
training on that recently. It was an empathy training.
Hmm.
And the crazy thing, and this is something that I have to work on. It's crazy that Adai, he was talking about it. We were outside, kind of. I did a slight little vent. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
And it's so natural for us because we want to respond. It's natural to want to respond, but then and it's something that he said that he was trying to work on, and I'm actually trying to work on myself too. Is when somebody's telling you said story, they're venting to you. Naturally, you want to show them that you understand by telling them a similar scenario that
Hmm.
you are going through. You know what I mean? And then
Understood.
it's literally, and during the training, it said that like, what is the best way? So it wasn't saying that that was wrong all the time. It's
Hmm.
not that that's wrong all the time, but it's
Hmm.
like, are you literally allowing me? Are we going to address how I feel right now?
Hmm.
You know what I mean? So it could be good for certain conversations where I ain't really just trying to vent. I want to hear, I want a conversation.
Right when you don't want to feel like you're alone.
Yeah.
So yeah, nah, I
So
definitely.
just like paying attention to people a little bit more and just caring about people more. And that's
Hmm.
why I was thinking like that's why I was saying like it's society. It's almost what it boils down to is that people need people. We are just created that way. We need
Hmm.
each other, and that is the reason why the society is like it is. Nobody wants to be real. physically or you know what I mean, emotionally.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? We're running from ourselves, and then so like, and not like your boy was saying, like, and I'm not trying to talk nowhere near down to him because I could understand and I empathize with the scenario. It's like you playing football, right? Even if you can be the best player, you know what I mean? You got a two-parent household, so you can check hella boxes. But the thing is if you're not being your authentic self, then you faking, and that's work. That's work. It's literally you tearing yourself up trying to impress everybody around you when you're not even you could be the and still not have your needs met. So like we
Well,
have to be
that I
more.
mean, but I don't even know if it's like the fact of like even if you're not pretending,
Mm,
like there is, especially if you're not equipped with the proper toolbox. Like if you just look at what a senior, especially if say you're a 4-year football player, you don't have an offer on the table or offer in which your expectations hit from, and now you feel like you're about to let down your family, and
mm,
like it's so many different like. Maybe my grades and my SAT scores ain't really hitting to where it makes me
mm-hmm.
eligible for this high D1 that maybe I even have an offer from, and some shit like it's a lot of this different scenarios in which a high school kid, especially like that 17-year-old, where
Mm,
like one, this is a quick tangent. I think it's crazy that we expect 18-year-olds to be able to pick out their life at 18 when they go into the college
for sure.
because of
Stupid
like
as hell.
at the age we're at now. It's like nigga,
I didn't know a fucking thing.
right? I didn't know a fucking
Like
thing.
Steve.
But if I was to go back on, I think that you said something that I wanted to respond
Mm,
to, in which you said the statement, drink water, drive on.
mm.
Right.
That's in that. That's the army. That's where I got that from.
Right. For me, I know that in general, that's one of those ideologies that I want to, at least my part of it is I want to try and break that down a little bit more.
Mm,
Or deter away from it. Where I think that yes, it is important to be a really strong black man. It
mm,
is also okay to not always be the strongest, and admit that, and be comfortable in spaces where you can admit that, and not have the pressure of the world to feel like if I am not strong inside every scenario, whatever that may be,
mm.
that I am not a failure. And so yeah, that I wanted to make. Go
I
ahead.
think no, I was gonna say I think that's some of the hardest shit. That takes some of the most
Mm-hmm.
strength. They take mental strength. It's a lot of
Mm-hmm.
motherfuckers that can go out and lift weights and
Yep.
bench press 300. It's not a lot of motherfuckers that can get up there in front of like a room full of people and really tell them how exactly you
Mm-hmm.
feel. So being able to be vulnerable, that's to me that's true strength
Yeah.
because that's something that physical strength, you can do the work and you're gonna get it. That mental strength, that's something that like, and I guess you can do the work and get that mental strength, but it's a lot more. It's harder work because
For
you're
sure.
gonna have to go sit down by yourself and really, figure yourself out. You're gonna have to really wake up and figure out what you are thankful for, figure out what things you can control that you can make better,
Mm-hmm.
and then just it's just the whole perspective thing that you gotta shift in order to get to that
Yeah.
mental, state.
I think this throws us to a nice segue where there is a question that I've heard where it says, "Do you think that it's easier for men to apologize?"
Mm.
I'd like to hear y'all feedback on it, especially given this conversation.
I think that I would say yes. And the
Think
reason
so?
I say yes is that as a man you generally end up having to apologize throughout your life. It's like something that it just ends up having to happen. Like especially when you're dealing with for me in my
That's
experience with the
interesting.
opposite sex, like it's not the same. So like for me, like I've seen instead of an apology, a woman may or women that I've dealt with, they may change the behavior, or at least which is temporary. It usually just generally is. But when you do it, they want to hear you apologize. Like that's something that I lived where it's like they want to hear it like that, even just not even saying, and I done had somebody don't even like to say me like the idea of saying I apologize versus I'm sorry, which I don't like saying I'm sorry just because of that just that language, but like saying, you know what I mean, just wanting to hear, or not even my bad, that ain't enough, like being very uh
Oh, the
specific
Kyrie side
about
of
how
things.
they want to hear the apology. I've had that
He
with
kind of
a
hurricane.
couple different scenarios, so I think that as a man you generally, even against amongst each other, You know what I mean? I done apologized probably about all of the homies that I guess that's just maybe it's just me, but I
Well, yeah,
No, I
apologize.
think it's
Yeah, it's very natural for me.
I'm probably air close on the other side. I think
Mm,
that because of the male ego in general, a lot of times that gets in the way, and typically guys have traditionally handled apologies and conflict with
mm,
like altercation. Like, and then like even if we don't really like hash out, we can just go shoot a fair one, and then we done got that off our chest.
yeah.
It's still back here somewhere, but like the actual literal part of apologizing and being vulnerable, like the whole piece that we were just speaking about when it comes down to being a male, I think that that's a part that we struggle with, and I think that that translates also in relationships,
Well, how many times
where
you think you've said my bad, bro?
but no, I think it's a little
I,
different than like because I hear what
I'm gonna answer you too, bro. Go
I
ahead.
hear what you're saying about ego and like when it's the guy sometime, but there's a lot of times as a man like like especially like with your lady and stuff or friends. There's times I've apologized when I've been pissed off just to
Mm-hmm.
just
So then
to
I
Just to
have this
get
make
to
question.
the other
things yeah
side,
just to
yeah.
make things better.
Well, I
So
have this question for y'all because in previous episodes, y'all have stood on the other side of the fence when it comes down to communicating how you feel to your partner and what yeah like what your stance is. But maybe so
well
what
no
you're saying is that
Yeah.
you
That's,
you will apologize for an action that you did, but you struggle with communicating how you feel about a grievance.
well,
Is that what is,
sometimes the apology is in lieu of the communication. You just apologize. Oh, my bad. I didn't mean to try to communicate how I felt. Let's just don't even worry about that. And then you just apologize, even though what you did may have been born out of an emotion that you had.
mm-hmm.
You may have been mad about something, and
You
you
may
didn't
feel validated
and then you
but
did
you
something
still.
and then you had to
Mm-hmm.
go and apologize for what you did because you didn't feel validated. So and it's the communication, like you apologize because you don't feel like communicating exactly how
Mm-hmm.
you felt. So I feel like sometimes the apology is
Sheesh.
to like to avoid the communication
That was
because
one.
I've done that plenty of times where I've had something on my chest, but instead of like me actually saying how the fuck I feel, be like, you know what, my bad.
Mm-hmm.
I was fucked up when I did that. You got it. Let's just move on.
so you're saying
Nah,
that
I live that too, bro. I
so
live that too.
So
so
you
you
push your emotions to the back burner.
To
Just
apologize,
chalk it.
so
just to
you
be civil.
apologize instead of yeah. So I think that she put it fairly well. You suppress your emotions and apologize instead of dealing with
Right. So I've done that.
Mm-hmm.
it. Okay.
Yeah, because I mean, if you think about it, that just the extension, the length of the conversation, and how much I think that at least for me, I know that if I say things, especially like let's say I've been in relationships where like if you just to be direct, it's too much. So if I know that like me actually even just telling you how I'm feeling could go left, then hey, might as well just be like, hey, I'm sorry, I apologize for, and just you know what I mean because it seems as though it could go things could get worse before they get better, which I'm not saying that's the right way of doing it. I'm not saying that I've been right in the way I've handled it, but it just it's come more natural for me to be like it ain't even got to be all of that. You know what I mean? I ain't got to
Yeah.
even sit here for no 2 hours, and then when you get hot, you probably might get defensive, and then the conversation go all the way over here about something else and all of this extraness. So like, well, all right, bro, I'm just gonna apologize and just let you have it, and just make my life a lot easier.
Before Taj goes, I guess I would want to hop in and say a couple things. One, I think that like we as well. No, I'm gonna start at the most important part. I think that what you described is a typical scenario.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, I'm always going to push solutions in which I think that if we recognize the suicide rates with men, and then we speak about what they come from,
Mm-hmm.
we also have to find out ways to be intentional about expressing that pent up shit because all it does is end up festering and turn into a bubble,
Facts.
in which is going to come out inside whatever way. And we don't want that to come out inside the worst way. Um, the other piece would be I think that it's going to be something that in general with our relationships, all of our partnerships, in general, that we have to work on. And if you have, look, again, if you need to go get therapy, go do that as well. As
Sure.
couples where you find effective communication strategies. Um, so there's not a one size fits all when it comes down to it. So like the way you as a couple figure out how to communicate might work for you that might not be reciprocal for any other one.
Mm.
But finding out effective communication strategies to where each person feels heard and feels valued inside how they actually feel will help a lot of those underlying causes in which we're speaking about trying to fix.
I'd agree.
Yeah, it was kind of similar to that in the lanes of mental health, what we're talking about. You keep pushing your emotions to the side. At what point or how do you deal with those suppressed emotions? Because they're not going away. They're going to still be there if they're
Mhm.
not addressed. So, how do you manage that?
Yeah, and that's a great question. And then honestly, I was almost there. And then hold on, before I'm gonna answer that. But you know something that is a plus or a superpower for you is that you are the type of person that likes to debate, right? And then you're gonna go even long form, like you until you know what I mean. You're gonna get all of that off all the way through. So there's a difference between like, especially with me, I'm like, I mean, it comes a place where it's like, bro, it
Mm-hmm.
ain't even that steep. Whatever we talking about, it ain't that steep. So even in relationships, I'm pretty sure that you're willing to do that even in relationships. That you know what I mean, you want your point to be, and you'll debate back and forth, and hopefully someone would concede. I would assume that most times you're not the one to concede most times. So, and I mean that would probably be
I
a
don't know.
strength in.
That's actually good. I think that debating in long form with your partner is probably not really the best thing.
Okay.
I think conceptually, theoretically, I like to debate.
Mm-hmm.
But I also like it's very finite inside like the conversations because typically it's not really like if there's a feeling, that's kind of the thing. So
Mm.
like understanding each other's feelings is bigger than a debate. And
Right.
then like debating, like if we debate like some philosophical shit, we don't necessarily always go down that. So like that'd be the
Yeah.
most part, but I don't. I try not to debate feelings because the feelings, like a person felt that.
Mm-hmm.
So now let's understand why. Like rationalizing it through your brain is not important because that was a felt feeling,
Mm-hmm.
and I try and make sure, and that's what I hope for inside response as well.
Yeah, no, and I'm not trying to say that like you're in a relationship with you. It's not a negative thing. What I'm trying to say
Oh
is that
no,
like
I was
you
just
allow
making sure
your,
like that,
you make sure
showing how
your emotions.
differentiated.
You
Yeah, but
it's a
yes,
difference in you make sure that
yes,
you're heard. Your emotions are heard,
that is true.
and so
Yes,
but for
yes,
most men, that is not something that we, you know what I mean. So that's why I say it's like a superpower because
yeah,
then
I
that
get
can
you.
lead to a conversational relationship. That makes sense.
I just wasn't
So
trying to lead niggas down the wrong path. Don't debate with your lady.
okay, okay,
That's
yeah,
the L. Long form
yeah,
debates with your lady. L. L.
yeah.
Yes.
And, but when you were saying like, well, if you don't, if you're not speaking it, you know what I mean. How do you deal with it? And I would say that that is literally why the suicide rate is how it is.
Mm-hmm.
It's because we don't deal with it. I found myself there's a period of time I want to say maybe about a year ago, maybe 2 years ago, where um it got to the point to where like I was like literally start crying at random times, like just random time, like I was experiencing where like I could find myself crying for like a happy movie. It's just so, you know what I mean, just like my emotions were
Mm-hmm.
literally like just
All over the place.
all over the place. So like literally like crying, you know what I mean, and then finding myself at random just wanting to just scream out. And it was
Mm-hmm.
something that I saw in and I still do this. I don't know why. It was like I seen this movie years and years ago, and then all of a sudden I noticed myself doing this. It was like the Tukey Williams, where Jamie Foxx was playing Tukey Williams,
I don't think I've seen this movie.
and yeah, he played Tukey Williams in the movie. And every time he got into a new space, he always would put his arms from one end, just extend his arms all the way out. And out of nowhere, I just started doing that.
Hmm.
And then, like for me, it literally started to feel like a release. Like I swear to God, like just getting in the room. Of course, like in his scenario, in the beginning, he could touch both walls,
In
with
jail.
spread, you know what I mean, spreading his arms out. So it's
Mm.
for him. I know it was something different, but it was just like, where did I see this from? Like that's the only thing I could connect it to is that me seeing that, like literally. Just, you know what I mean, extending my arms and just like, you know what I mean, that it feels like a release. I guess you can convince yourself that anything is a release. But yeah, that's for me. Like I literally like uh Yeah, that's like you're right. You know what I mean? That does. I'm pretty sure the reason why, and I would say the reason why men's suicide rate is so much more, is so much higher, is because we haven't developed, nor has it been acceptable for us to express our emotions out loud in mass. So that's just like right now we're seeing men speak out about relationships, and it's like I know it's offsetting, off putting women, to women to hear these things, but dude's been feeling this way for a long time. It's just now just starting to people starting to talk. You hear more men talking now. You talking. So it's literally been the fact that we have been bred in society to drink water and drive on. So and the hardest thing we're gonna have to unlearn pretty much, and that's not like the relationships and all of this stuff. It all boils down to the same thing that like we are in a shift that nobody, especially men, weren't ready for. Mentally, we weren't ready and prepared for this shift that's coming, and yeah, it's really gonna be a lot of us that yeah we're gonna be lost. We're gonna be lost, just as lost as a lot of us are now. We're just trying to figure it out, and I don't know. That's my piece.
I think that same end result, different you know what I mean, perspective. I think men are ready for this. I think men are pushing it. Even if you look at like why Kevin Samuels was as prevalent as he was. The conversations that we are now having. I think it's more so on a societal lens is that society has to now start getting prepared for what articulate, emotionally responsible men, black men, look like,
Mm.
and be prepped for that. Because of we're here, the expressions are coming. Are y'all able to actually handle it? And that's on like the women's side as well,
Mm-hmm.
where like all these different versions of perspectives, all the different pills and different shit like that.
Mm-hmm.
It's all based out of an ideology of men being heard and actually voicing your perspective, in which hasn't been heard for so long. And that's
Mm-hmm.
why it's so triggering, it's so viral, it's so agitating to so many different people. It's so much discussion. It's because of men actually have very strong opinions.
Mm-hmm.
It's just not been voiced.
Right.
I got a question. Going back to a few minutes ago when you was talking about when like we suppress, and that's something like you say we're working on it, but it's probably been we're all 30 plus. There's years of stuff that's probably hadn't been communicated and emotions that have
Mm-hmm.
been buried. What does dealing with them look like? Like outside of like, is it therapy? Like if you're not going to therapy, how how are we supposed to like, kind of work through? Is it just a certain conversation, or is it just a matter of just deciding in your head that you're accepting of certain things? What does that what does that look like? Us dealing with those emotions. Sometimes it may even just be talking about them and venting.
The one thing I will say is that I hear a lot. It's like we'll look at it like us talking to each other. It's like therapy, and it can be therapeutic, but it's not therapy. And I think that it's important to kind of look at those two things because like I've actually been through therapy. I was going through I've been through well we won't go into that some for another time. I've been through therapy for like I want to say maybe like the last 2 years I was in the military. I was going through one-on-one and group therapies, and then within what last year I went and this I probably been in therapy probably like a total of like 4 years of like one-on-one and group therapy. Um, and there's a difference between something that is therapeutic. It can be therapeutic for us. Like this is therapeutic for me. Us having these conversations. This is very therapeutic for me. But there's a difference when you have someone that does this. You know what I mean? And it's not so much as like them telling you what to do. Those my therapy sessions is so dope because I thought that they was gonna give you the answers. That's what it seemed like. You think of therapy like, oh yeah, they're gonna give you the answers that'll make you think about the world. They
Oh
just
no, that's
ask you
why I dropped out of
questions.
being a therapist. Like that's what I was going to school for, get my master's degree.
Mm.
But when I learned that it was all theory, that's literally when I dropped out.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, for me, my experience is that they just ask good questions,
Oh no, for sure. It it,
and that
it,
was
it
just
typically
all.
comes from a theoretical background of why
Mm,
in the lane of questioning that they're asking.
Right.
And there's like a couple different schools of thought. I can't like list them directly off the top of the head because it's years removed.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, that was because at first I came in with that ideology of that okay, there is an actual true map to get to a space.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I didn't that I was agreeing with this point.
Okay, yeah.
I was going to ask, in those moments, how do you leverage your brotherhood? Because you guys are friends. So how does that look?
Hit the nigga. I just did it the other day. You know what I mean? Hit it just and the thing is that what I love about it is like I'm gonna be like direct and pretty much like we ain't chopped it up in a minute. You know what I mean? And I guess that's not even as direct as it should be because when I was venting, I didn't it wasn't intentional for that to be what it was. It was actually really I ain't seen you in a minute, you know what I mean? We ain't chopped it up in a minute, but it literally turned into a therapeutic conversation.
Mm-hmm.
So I wasn't as direct as I would say like I usually am, you know what I mean? But just being available, being willing to reach out and then being available when you can. It's not like you sitting by the phone waiting on the homie just to make sure. But if you see the homie call you, ain't nothing that's you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
You should prioritize the people that you care about. Period. And I guess that's really what it is. Prioritizing the people you care about.
I don't know. I guess for me, I know that that's a continual journey for me of getting better at, in which um my journey is still learning to be emotionally vulnerable inside multiple capacities with multiple people. Where I think maybe even what was it? We all went out and just grabbed a drink and shit.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the next day we came back and y'all was like, "Oh damn, niggas was inside a whole lot of car accident and didn't even think about it
Right.
because of like the way my mind is set up. I compartmentalize things really well, and so it wasn't even an intentional thing of me not opening up and like saying like the thing that happened. In my mind, I already dealt with it, so I had already pushed it off, and it wasn't a thing to think about. In which it's something that's a piece of the even like the pod. That's been an intentional journey for me in learning how to take the steps towards being a better friend, being a more vulnerable friend, and leveraging inside her words that friendship because of yeah, like I can articulate these things really well, but I'm not going to act like I'm like great at doing it all the time. And that's you know what I mean. Like I said, that's a space that me personally that I'm intentionally trying to walk through the walks of doing.
That's dope.
Yeah. No, for me, it's just having making space for the homies,
Mm-hmm.
and then actually using your brothers too, and you like not using them, but like leaning on them
Mm-hmm.
when you're going through something. You ain't always gotta go through the shit alone. You ain't always gotta you can probably tell somebody. There's
Yeah.
probably somebody that's willing to listen and maybe even help you out or give you a different perspective if you going through certain stuff. So uh it's just making space and being open and actually utilizing the brotherhood and the infrastructure that we got, and not just always being a strong oh, I can do it, type of
Mm-hmm.
person.
And it always been about shooting the shits. You know what I mean? Because we could easily just be around each other shooting the shits
Mm-hmm.
all the time,
Right.
and nobody ever be real about anything that's going on. Like when we was growing up, we literally did that a lot. Like we were just cool with the homies and just kind of was around each other. I know grown
And
men who have
everything was
friendships
surface
like
level.
that.
Yeah.
Grown men just they go and shoot pool like once a week, and nobody really knows who the other
Talks about
person is
it.
for real, for real. Yeah, man.
I think a good way to cap off this whole conversation, um, whether it's a friend, whether it's somebody that you are cool with, whether it's your partner, whoever, to bring it back full circle where we started at, reach out to somebody because of again the season of depression, the suicide is in the air. It's been multiple people that have came down and well not came down but have that we see inside current times. Like I said, from the
Mm-hmm.
app soul where you've attempted to the Twitch to the Green Ranger. Like it's
Mm-hmm.
mad people. So my piece that I'll end off with, I'm looking and it says right now, uh, they made the suicide help and prevention hotline really easy. Look like you can text 988 or you can call 988. It's really simple. Again, if you don't have a friend group there, if you don't have a partner that you feel you can reach out to, I think that in all, we all feel like everybody's life is valuable and it holds some weight. And go talk to somebody. There's people that's there that's job is to be present. If you can't find friends to be present inside that moment in which you need to really communicate whatever's on your mind.
And I was just going to say, if you are someone who is on the receiving end of someone like venting to you, just make space for that person. Just make space for them. Just be present and let them kind of open up to you.
Agreed.